Hey everybody, what's going on? Thanks for checking into our latest TDR Trade to Black podcast. Interesting conversation we're going to have here this morning. It's about THC hemp-derived beverages and what it's actually going to take for them to go into the mainstream. We're starting to see more and more product available in major grocery chain stores, which is a good sign. So on one hand, you have states like Minnesota, they're completely embracing it. While on the other hand, Congress is debating whether or not THC should even be legal with some of the news that we've seen about this farm bill that's going to be in store come 2026. So the big question here today, what will it take for THC hemp-derived beverages to get into the mainstream? And that is the topic of conversation. So with that, no better person to have on than the CEO of Nevis Brands, John Kueber. Back to the podcast. Good day, sir. How are things?
Hey, Shad. Things are good. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Good to see you again. Where's time go? We're already at the end of August.
I know.
It's crazy how much time flies. But, we've had some conversations in the past, and like I've said off the top, always good to talk about your brands, but when we look at this, there's going to be news coming out about Texas, and all eyes are going to be on what's going to be the next step. And we get the rescheduling news in Washington. There's a lot of moving parts, but when we look at this product, this industry, it's definitely growing exponentially. So when we talk about hemp becoming mainstream, what do we really mean by that? And its placement in grocery stores, standard labeling, or something bigger? So my first question, your view, what are the non-negotiables that truly make hemp beverages mainstream right now?
Yeah, I mean, I can go into some of those details, but the main guiding principles that we go by are cannabis has got to be safe, it's got to be predictable, it's got to be reliable, and it's got to be fun. And we'll get into what makes that all happen. But I kind of get to first principles when I see someone who's not really that familiar with hemp or THC. Maybe it's a social occasion that I'm hosting, and someone wants to try one of our drinks. The level of sort of unfamiliarity, discomfort, unsureness. A lot of these people have tried cannabis before. They're not afraid of cannabis per se.
Yeah.
But when they see something packaged up into a drink, these questions of, what is 5 milligrams? What is 10 milligrams? How fast does it hit? How do I know this is 5 milligrams? Just those mini samples that I see are what's happening across the entire nation when they encounter our products and everybody's products in grocery stores, online, smoke shops, so forth. So what is happening with regulation is going to happen. I mean, there's influences, and it's exciting and nerve-wracking all at the same time to see what's happening in Texas, Washington, and everywhere else. And we'll track that. But pretending for a second that SB 6 is not overly draconian, there's some regulation. Let's just say some of these things happen.
Yeah.
There's still work that we have to do as an industry and as brands to be able to make cannabis safe, reliable, predictable, and fun. So I don't know if now's a good time to go into some of those bullet points in terms of like safety, but we do need, I think the number one thing is there needs to be a standard around dosing.
Of course.
Because, we know with beer, and I some people might disagree with me on this, but I think beer is actually a great analog for hemp-derived THC. You've got to consume a couple to really feel the effects. You can have 3 beers and be illegally driving for sure. That's the nature of intoxication. But when we're talking about something low dose, people need to know that usually this unit delivers this effect. We have that with seltzer and beer right now. There's light beer, there's heavy IPAs, there's going to be some variables, but for the most part, you kind of know what you're going to get. That is definitely not what is happening in hemp-derived THC. You have the same bottle and can formats carrying 5, 10, 25, 50, in some cases 100. And for the consumer, that gets consuming. So I think that, again, without getting into all the different legislation and regulation happening, as an industry, I think we need to rally around some dosage, some consistent dosage, and help the consumer sort of trust what they're getting in a can.
We're still at the early stage of the industry. Light beer is what, 4%? Normal beer is what, 5% alcohol? But when you look at every state as far as dosing model, right now for hemp-derived beverages, THC beverages, we're looking at 5 milligrams per serving, if I'm correct, in Minnesota. Louisiana caps per package. Tennessee, I think, taxes by the milligram. So to your point, there's no consistency. So what does make sense when it comes to framework? And what do you see, like, I guess, is there conversations that you've had and recommendations that you would prefer, or at least provides a little bit of intellectual conversations with some people that get your advice on some of this stuff? Like what kind of framework does make sense eventually?
Well, I'll just lead with my opinion, which is secondary to what the to what the market actually is. But I think 5 milligrams is a great starting point.
Yeah, I
I think a
agree.
lot of us would be happy if it was 5 milligrams. Sort of the 2 and 3, that starts getting into people trying a beverage and going like, what's even in here? Or
Yeah,
people who are familiar with cannabis just saying, why bother? There's just nothing there. I got to drink too much of that. I'm going to go get something from the dispensary or the illegal market or what have you. So, I mean, 5% I think is a great starting point. What we see in states like North Carolina, South Carolina, and Texas, at least now, is yeah, everything started with 5, but just like all the dispensary markets, everybody creeps up and consumers creep up in terms of wanting higher dosages.
why is that? Why is that?
I think it's resistance. Sorry, I think it's people's bodies developing some resistance, but I think it's also just comfort. They've tried
Okay.
one and they're like, 5, this is easy, and then they're looking for a better value and they want to buy something 10 milligrams. So as an industry, it makes more sense because you're going to sell a little bit better, little more product. If it was 5 milligrams, people are going to buy the proverbial 6 pack if they want to get
Exactly.
that
It's
50
like
milligram
alcohol.
buzz on.
You
So
know, alcohol is all about based on, quantity. You're not going out and crushing one beer that's got 50%. Like it's a socializing thing where you're drinking, in some cases, let's face it, you're buying the 6 pack, like you said. If you're tailgating at a football game, you're not going to have one beer. Some people are, but let's be honest with ourselves. There's people that drink a lot at some of these events, but that becomes a social gathering. This is all part of the growing process of this industry. So I think, does that not, like to your point, the 5 milligrams does make sense, does it not?
it's a nice dose that's safe for most consumers. It's also a nice dose that leads to selling more product for the industry. Also creates beverages that actually taste a little bit better. So I mean, there's a couple different reasons I think, for that number to be the right number and
Yeah,
for the industry to maybe rally around that being, because I also think that some of these, reactions to going to 2 and 3% in some states, which I don't think is a good number, it's it's an overreaction to seeing some of the higher dose products and people being concerned. If we just stayed within a reasonable amount, which again I think is 5, uh, I think it would help everybody.
yeah, I
Now,
agree.
going back to who enforced it, when you look at alcohol, again, I'm leaning a lot on the analog with beer and TTB and liquor, but you have a federal framework that states limits around alcohol, limits around packaging, minimum ages, and some broad strokes in terms of regulation. And then there's a strong edict for states to put in rules that they think are important for their people, whether it's only sold in liquor stores or other requirements. But the main laws are set federally, and then states can tweak them from there.
Right.
Probably not in the next couple of years, but who knows? I mean, I think all the regulations tied together, whether it's safe banking, whether it's a farm bill and a rewrite, all the stuff is related and leads to the same inertia. But if we had some equivalent of the TTB or the TTB itself stating it's a 5 milligram limit per serving
Yeah.
and XYZ on age, XYZ on packaging, COAs being required. We can talk about QR codes. I mean, some other things, but those broad strokes put in by the federal government would go such a long way.
Yeah. Well, when we look, as I said off the top, becoming more mainstream as this moves from dispensaries into major grocery chain stores, stores like Kroger, they need obviously consistency, they need compliance. So, what's the checklist that they want right now when you're first having those conversations with them when it comes to these THC drinks?
So, for better or worse, right now the major retailers and again, when I talk about major retailers, it's less so Kroger, but it's companies doing similar sort of volume, big box stores that are regional. Their biggest thing is making sure that they're not breaking the law right now, just because
Right.
there's
Of
so much
course.
ambiguity around the product. So
Yeah.
yes, checking all those boxes that your packaging is in line, your warnings are in line. It They aren't really wiring this. I shouldn't say that. A lot of them aren't wired for how do we make this mainstream. To a certain degree, it's still novelty for them. Maybe
Yep.
Minnesota's an outlier, but because they're further along. But there's still a sense of novelty of like, okay, we're not breaking the law. Let's put this in. where do we put this in? Do we put it with the fruit drinks? Do we put it with the beer? Do we put it in its own section? Now, the ones that are a little further along, they understand placement. They understand where it goes. Total Wines, they have a dedicated section for THC derived. I mean, I'd say Total Wine actually really has it the most dialed because they have a lot of shelf
Yep.
talkers. They allow some in-store demos. It's amazing what they've done. But I think grocery is still, let's not break the rules and let's see how this sells. But
Walk before they run.
yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
Very much.
How do those
I get that.
How do those conversations even begin with some of these grocery chains? Like, how do they even become interested in knowing that the product could potentially move? Because when it comes to purchasing power for the companies or the people that are employed, how does, I guess, start those conversations to say, yeah, we have to be compliant. We have to make sure that everything we're doing is following by the rules. That's one thing. But at the other hand, you got to make sure if you're bringing in product, it moves and sells. So how do those conversations even begin?
My sense is that most of these chains, there's a buying team, and some of them have 3 people, some of them have 15 people or more. There tends to be one internal champion, avant-garde, and I don't even want to necessarily say younger, although often they are. But there's one champion who is paying attention. Maybe they like the products, and they're saying to the rest of the buying team, "Hey, our competitors or this chain in another state is selling a lot of this stuff. We got to get going on this." And again, I'm not in the room internally with buyers, so I can't recreate the conversation. But my sense of it is that you get some buyers that are very much on board and want to lead the charge, want to do some unique placements, want to truly treat this as a mainstream product. And you get other buyers who are very reticent, almost to the point of I want nothing to do with this. Imperfect analogy, but as a former internet entrepreneur from a couple of decades ago, I mean, it reminds me a little bit when people were like moving their LANs or their internal networks onto the cloud or into the internet. Like some people are just so stuck on the past. You need that champion to be able to drive things forward and say, this is okay, this is what's happening. Look at the stats. This is where the industry is going. People are drinking less booze. People are consuming more cannabis. Let's go. So, yeah, answering your question, the dynamic and the question that they're asking, once you check the boxes on the legalities, the best customers are then, going block and tackle into marketing tactics. Okay, what shippers? Those are, shelf stands, end cap type stands that you use to place product. Do you have shippers? Do you have shelf talkers? Yep. We're going to be doing geo-targeting for our stores with ads. How many times a month can you come in and do in-store demos, which we love in-store demos. I was actually hoping to have some pictures for you today. But in-store demos are a fantastic way for education and promotion. But the smart buyers and these champions within these chains, once you get past the legality, they're getting into how they would market any challenger brand and finding out what the brand is willing to do.
Based off of that, I mean, last time we'd mentioned to you, there was certain placements where your product was going to be available in the new distribution partnership that you announced last month. But I have to ask, like, what are retailers, I guess, asking for? Like, are they demanding age gates or specific insurance before they stock hemp drinks? Like, what exactly are they asking?
They're asking for ID when people buy this type of product. They know that when they scan your product at checkout, they know to ask for ID. But there's not an age gate in terms of someone being able to look at it. It's not in a special locked off section or anything along those lines. Again, they're more or less treating this like beer because they don't have the direction on how to treat this product. So that's just sort of their guidance of how to do it. I mean, there's, again, wishing there was some federal guidelines to be able to say, this is how this product should be handled.
Yeah.
We could all play by the same rules. It would give everyone more confidence, give the consumers more confidence, and then we'd have to abide by a set of regulations. Right now, it's very much, yes, the buyer's looking at your product. They're making sure that your product has the right amount of THC, so forth. They're looking at your lab results. Then you're shipping a product. and then they're going into the best possible placement for this product. And
Yeah.
that's where this unique approach is. I mean, I think I was mentioning the last time I was on, like we have one chain that's in the process of placing us on shippers, on these shelf stands in a very unique location. It's on that, on the aisles where you see the produce and sort of
Right.
the natural fruit drinks they usually have some sort of healthy drinks in a cold case,
It's
and then
great.
you have another cold case on the other side of the store that has beer and sodas and all that sort of stuff. Our
Stay away
product
from
is,
the sugar aisles, right?
yeah, the sugar aisle, right? But they're putting us, because this particular product actually is all natural, no added sugars, et cetera. They're putting us with these sort of other alternative beverages in the produce aisle, on an end cap stand, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And we can't wait to share that with the viewers on your show.
Well, let's face it, we now live in a society where consumers are demanding transparency in anything that they buy to put into their bodies. So, as you mentioned, clear labels, QR codes linking to lab results. So, what do you think should be on every hemp beverage label right now?
Well, I mean, definitely the warning sign, definitely clear 21 plus,
Yep.
which I might mention, the big 21 plus is not a requirement on all the different state packaging. It's interesting to see, but that seems like an obvious one. A big 21 plus, a big warning label, a QR code that links to COAs, certificates of analysis for people who aren't familiar with that, that shows the exact amount of THC and other cannabinoids that are in the product that you're selling, which
Yep.
frankly is more transparent than 95% of consumer products out there. I mean, you don't see a fruit drink that has a COA from testing that shows pesticides and microbials.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, I think those three things: 21, warning label, COA, are the key ones, in terms of just packaging. But before that, it's also the dosing regulation that we talked about before.
Yeah. So, if QR linked COAs become a national standard, like, would you ever support random retail polls to verify accuracy?
100%. I mean,
Yeah.
well, any player like us, and frankly, 50 people like us, 50 brands like us, who are doing it right, yes, because it's the bad actors that are ruining the industry for the rest of us.
Of course.
These random pulls in Florida that are pulling crazy dosages, for better or worse. Is that selling a 100 milligram product that's 20 and selling a 50 milligram product that's 200? It's nut bar.
Yeah.
So absolutely random pulls, and whether that's done by the chain or an agency, 100% recommend that, and penalties to follow if you're not complying. You get a warning, you get a fine, then you get pulled off the market for 30 days.
That's how it works. Because I was going to ask you, if a company mislabels or fails testing, like, what happens then? So they get a warning over 30 days. So then what happens? Do they have to replace the product they have on their shelves?
There's no
Like,
clear guidelines on what, I mean, you're basically,
Mm.
well, first of all, it's not happening. There's not a lot of, I mean, unless you're, the Dank Informer or someone like that, where they're going out and doing their own polls, and I don't know if it's the Dank Informer, but he's always reporting on stuff like that. Um, um,
Big time.
yeah.
I
So
don't know what
I
that
mean,
guy does
I
for a
think
living, but
it's
I don't
renegades
know.
doing their own testing and showing how inconsistent a lot of the industry is, and that's actually mostly with flour and gummies. I don't see this as much with beverages, and maybe just a quick plug for THC beverages over other products, if I may. Granted, we're biased, but I think the cool thing about beverages, it is homogeneity. It's knowing that when you if you have half a cannabis beverage,
Yeah.
you're going to get, if it's a 5 milligram beverage, you're going to get 2.5 milligrams. I mean, unless it's really poorly made, it's generally homogeneous. The dosing is good. If you have a gummy or a brownie, even now, like you, it's really hard to get
Got to be
homogeneity in
careful.
other products.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's why I'm a big fan of beverages in terms of dosing and consistency, because you do get that homogeneity.
Yeah, well, we've seen so many people in the cannabis space, the illicit market, get fined and have their dispensary closed and only reopen the next day. So I don't know if fines are enough. I do think that licenses being suspended or product destroyed would be a great start as well. But the
Well,
Dank Informer, some of the stuff that he's reported the last few months, you can understand. And I'm reading between the lines. When I saw President Trump be asked about rescheduling last week, and he said there's a lot of good things regarding medical, but I also heard a lot of bad things. I think he's alluding to this whole synthetic approach as to what's happening across the US right now. And with this pending new farm bill coming up in 2026, These are the types of conversations that are going to take place. And I think the appropriate people are going to be asked for their take over the course of these next 6 to 9 months, which is probably the right approach. But suspended license, product being destroyed, that's just a start. And if there's going to be fines, they got to be some hefty fines too, right?
I mean, well, look, SB6 is alluding to that. I think you have talked about that in other shows, but I mean, going to jail for misleading consumers, that happens in CPG. I mean, if you sell aspirin and it's poorly made or poorly labeled, and you're giving it to consumers who are trusting this as a drug, then you should pay the penalty. Like
yeah, of course,
got to be responsible. There's the one side where, and we're talking about good stuff again. It's mainstream for drinks and other well-made products going into grocery stores. It's a good thing if we make that happen.
Yeah,
I can compare that, and this is all under the same law and regulation, which is where it's challenging and interesting. If I walk into a smoke shop, an alternative smoke shop, and I see a wall full of products from 10 milligrams to 1,000 milligrams.
1,000 you're seeing even?
What's that? Well, actually, I've seen bags full, 100 milligram slabs of gummies sold in 10 packs. I mean,
wild.
That's, in my opinion, that should be banned. That shouldn't be allowed. Like that's too much to be sold in a non-dispensary, at least, probably at all. But
of course,
you're I live in Washington State. You walk into a dispensary, well-regulated dispensary market here in Washington State. A lot of safety, a lot of labeling, a lot of packaging, a lot of compliance. It's a hassle, but it's how good industries run.
Yeah, agreed.
If you walk into a smoke shop in, well, I'm not going to say the state because we operate in a lot of them, but in certain states in the South, it really is. I'll say Florida because we don't do much in Florida. You walk into a lot of these shops in Florida, it is. Dank Informer is not wrong on some of these smoke shops and what they're selling and how there's got to be a stop to it, or at least some sort of throttling of it.
Where do you see, I guess, the most progress that's being made, meaning which state are actually leading the way with, I don't want to say clear rules, but maybe clearer rules in one state versus another that makes this possible? Are you seeing one state that actually stands out or a couple versus others?
Just such a huge fan of how they're doing it in North Carolina and South Carolina because
keep hearing that.
And granted, I mean, those are good states where Happy Apple does well, but it's just so cool to see them again. Go back to the beer thing. It's sold in bars. It's sold on tap. It's just a comparable low dose intoxicant. Is it sold in every single grocery store? No, but it's sold in every single alternative grocery store and small grocery store and a lot of these sort of high end, more yuppie style grocery stores. They have rules. They have rules around dosage. There's some penalties. I'm not sure. I assume they're doing a decent job of enforcement. I don't know because we haven't broken a lot of rules there or any rules there. But it just feels right how they're doing it. There's not a lot of the smoke shops that I've been into in those states are not selling crazy product. They're focused on beverages and gummies. I don't even think I see a lot of flour in those hemp-derived flour in those shops. So it just seems to be well run.
North Carolina, now I've heard that a lot, and a governor who's behind it too, which is good.
Yeah. And so for good reason. I think they grow a lot of hemp in those states as well.
Yeah. When we look at all these moving parts, these products are going to live and die off of the consumer. And who is that consumer? You get a large group of different people, from cannabis veterans, newcomers that are crossing over from beer, wines, and seltzers. So right now, what would you say, or who would you say is the core consumer today for hemp THC beverages?
It is an under 35 male. That's the core consumer, but that's not like a huge part of our bell curve. Like that's the center of it, but you see lumps on the curve. There's pockets of 40 to 60 of used to smoke a little weed, then I drank, then I quit drinking, and this stuff's great. It's perfect for me. I mean, that's a decent part of the distribution. And I say males under 35 just because it skews male. Yeah, it's females under 35 as well. it's almost easier for me to say the I think the part of the market that is consuming the least cannabis beverages are 40 to 50. Well, actually, I'd say 45 to 55-year-old
Yep.
males and females, which is sort of the heart, I think, of Gen Z drinking culture. Um, didn't have a lot of weed, sort of like the boomers did, so it wasn't as prominent. Not certainly at the customers in that category. I would just say that's an area that we probably focus less on, is the 40 to 55-year-old market.
Yep. Can't teach an old dog new tricks sometimes.
Yeah,
You've been down that road. But when you look at this, do you think it brings this category, brings the social aspect like alcohol has?
yeah. Just because it's summer and I get to see this, it's I you know I switch between alcohol and enjoying Happy Apple just because it's a nice low dose product. But it always makes me kind of happy when I have a gathering in the summer. People see our product, and our product is in with the beer cooler,
Yeah.
and I'm telling people what it is. But when someone, again, it's not the first time they tried cannabis, it's the first time they tried our product, and they're sort of talking about how they're not really drinking. And I get an email or a text the next day that says, "Man, that was awesome. I feel great today. Where do I get
Yeah.
more of that?" Again, those are just those are anecdotes, but it's happening. It's going to happen. And again, it's not like there's so much on X about and your viewers, frankly, in the comments, like, alcohol sucks, cannabis is the best. I mean, I'm of the mindset that both are awesome. It just depends on
Yeah.
the occasion. It's
Well, yeah, I will say as you expand, because like when you go to dispensaries, you're dealing with bud tenders that educate. When you're going into grocery chains, they don't have bud tenders, obviously, but in store, like what kind of in-store marketing opportunities are presented? Like, is there actually people on behalf of your brand that are placed there?
Yeah,
That bring
ambassadors.
awareness?
Essentially, people go in, they're wearing a drinkhappyapple.com T-shirt and talking about the product, asking. It's two different conversations. They're trained. Have you ever tried a hemp THC beverage before? No.
Yep.
If no, then it's this. If yes, then it's this. And if it's yes, we're talking about rapid onset, dosability, taste, and so forth. If no, we're talking about explaining what the effects are, because a lot of people, again, sadly, just don't know. They don't know if
Yeah.
we're gonna. Oh, am I going to be hyper? Am I going to be relaxed? It's like, yeah, you're going to be a little
Yep.
elated for 45 minutes, and then you're going to be relaxed. And that's our product. That's a lot of products, but
Bet you there's a lot of questions. Bet you there's a lot of questions. Is there any data that actually shows what education is actually working right now?
I don't know third-party data, but I know with our dispensary brand Major, um, we spent a lot of money in the first year doing bud tender training, and I think it was the difference of us coming out on top, because um, you know beverages are the mainstream hemp-derived THC product, but beverages are still not the mainstream product in dispensaries. So there's a lot of education that we had to tell the bud tender. The challenge is
Yeah.
with hemp is there's no bud tender. Um, there's just a shelf talker or a shipper that's explaining the benefits of your product. And so, as much
Well,
as we can, we're going to get ambassadors in these stores.
I think ambassadors and like you have, let's face it, bud tenders and cannabis consumers, they like that sort of thing. But I think if you're going to branch out and get through to new audiences, you got to have your product available. As you and I and Anthony have talked before, his wife does not want to go into a dispensary, or a lot of people that have certain jobs, because they have to have screen testing with their careers. Do they want to go into dispensaries? Probably not, but they want to go into a Total Wines or a grocery chain. You have that in-store marketing. That's the kind of thing that brings some normalcy to the overall industry to take it to that next level. So as we look at distributors and big chains, they have their own checklist, from insurance to recall readiness and tax compliance. What are, I guess, the gating factors big box distributors are asking for when carrying hemp THC beverages right now?
Well, yeah, I think I mentioned it. It's proof of quality production. That's COAs.
Yep.
It's proof of ability to supply inventory. It's sort of the typical thing where, of course, the first order is not that big, but once they go through that first order, you better be able to deliver a lot, which creates some inventory challenges. But that's just how the game works. Yeah, and then it's the in-store merchandising. Are you prepared to invest in this sort of packaging, this sort of shelf marketing? Um, I would say not all of them are asking for the geo-targeting. In fact, not a lot do. It's sort of a bonus I think you can do to help put you over the top as the buyers are going through that consideration. I mean, we're our biggest sample right now, just in talking about this, is again this distribution deal that we have in the Midwest, and they have a lot of stores. Are we in the majority of the stores? No. It's watching this rollout happen in real time. It's interesting looking at the swath of questions of, like, I want to answer your question with consistency, but the real answer is every store seems to be different.
Gotcha.
You get past the, is it slave? How is it made? Some people are focused on marketing. Some people are fixated on, legality and regulation. And are you going to take the product back if a ban comes down? Of course we will. Things like that. So
common sense stuff. But I think if anything,
I don't know if I have a clear, concise, like there's no one answer for that, truly.
Yeah, I know. Well, I think it's consistent with cannabis. You need some direction from Washington.
Yeah.
Once that's put into play, then there's some framework that can be around it. One last thing I want to bring up is you'd mentioned about you got to make it fun with regards to this industry, especially if you're skewing towards a 35 and under type crowd. How do you brand in this specific industry? Because branding is key, and I know there's certain limitations, but once you have lightning in a bottle and have a certain product that works, that's the ultimate branding, to say the least. But outside of that, do we see, once we get some framework from Washington, where we could see, let's say, for example, THC hemp derived beverages in like Super Bowl ads? Is that where this could potentially go?
For sure.
Yeah.
So look, I haven't seen this, and I hope it doesn't. I mean, I see this with some of the high dose hemp products, but in terms of cannabis beverage marketing, I think we do a good job. I think the industry has done a fantastic job of focusing on the fun and social part of it. What I would call OG style marketing with, like, big puffs of smoke and leaves and, get your super high on, et cetera. Still common with dispensary cannabis brands. Us at Nevis, we really, even with our high dose products, but definitely with Happy Apple, all of our imagery, and this I can send to you, all of our imagery is focused around people at a barbecue, people enjoying it together.
Yeah.
The all natural ingredient part of it. It's all sort of about the uplifting experience that, low dose hemp THC does provide. Enjoy that sort of on the way up elation part of it. That's the fun part, I think, just has not been talked about a lot. And so in dispensary markets or in dispensary markets, I should say, the fun part has been much more emphasized in terms of the beverage market.
Yeah, but I will say we are getting there. And quite honestly, I think it's a conversation that we needed to have and will have pertaining to Washington. But I think the big takeaway here is just really understanding what the key demographic is, which is 35 and under. But it's nice to see some of these, different grocery chains that are getting more involved, and some of the purchasing power that some of their employees have with the jobs that they have are looking at these specific brands and products like yourselves, and they've tried it themselves and say, this is something that we definitely need to do. But you still have that stigma with older people that are involved because they're set in their ways. I get it. But one thing's for sure, when you start branching out into dispensaries, into the total lines and major grocery chains, which you're beginning to see in the space, if we get some direction from Washington that really outlines some great regulation, we've seen growth here before. And let's face it, we're now living in a society where people aren't drinking as much. They don't want to wake up with a wicked hangover. And I'm the wrong guy to ask that, but ask somebody who's 29 or 30 years old, and that's just what's normal to them. So onwards and upwards, right?
That's right. I mean, look, despite all the things happening with the various legislatures, and it's progress. It's progress.
Yeah, of course.
We've already been talking about this stuff. This wasn't on any House floor a year ago. Like it's.
I know.
State banking is on its way. I think regulation's on its way. I think the world is unfolding as it should as it relates to cannabis. We all want it to happen faster, but it's progress.
Yeah, well, I am hearing certain people going to Washington in the event that rescheduling is announced. I don't think this is going to be put on the back burner. I think people are going to start wanting to get some takes on various people in the industry about possibly descheduling and banking and how that looks. What the conclusion will be, it's anyone's guess, but at least those conversations are being had. And this is why you're seeing a crackdown on the synthetic side, and all eyes will be on Texas. But these are the conversations that need to happen, because
Agreed.
for people that are running in the legal regulated market, I think this is what they badly want and need. And I do think in some ways, because you do have an alcohol bottle that's been around for 100 plus years, there is a proof of concept for them to actually follow to some degree. So one way or another, we're going to find out. But more importantly, appreciate the feedback here today and education and direction on what will make THC hemp-derived beverages go mainstream. But always great catching up with you, John.
It's great to be on. Thanks for having me, Shad.
All right. Thanks, John. Appreciate your time.
Thanks.
Hey everyone, we just eclipsed 50,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel. We want to continue to grow this community. So if you haven't done so, make sure to subscribe now. We'd appreciate it very much here at the TDR Traded Black podcast. As usual, let's keep the conversation going. So leave your comments below and we'll get back to you with any feedback that you want to learn more of. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your day and we'll see you next time on our latest Trade to Black podcast.